Hey guys, welcome to Dragon's Voice podcast. I don't know what episode it is. I don't think I'll ever explain what episode it is again because we're just going to move on. It's episode 6.
Episode 6, okay.
I don't think I'm going to go into any more explanation now of what the episode is because the guys are going to follow. It's going to say on the title, on the tagline for YouTube and everything. So James, welcome back, mate. We're in for another podcast treat. It's going to be a fun one, hopefully. Now, earlier on, after the first episode we had, which was the second episode where we talk about supporting Welsh football and everything, now we're going to talk about our own Dream Fantasy Wales 11 squad. How are you feeling about that?
I'm good with it. I think I've got it nailed down. I've had a quick quick think about things, and an unconventional formation from me, but it'll all unfold as we go through it anyway.
Unravel.
Yeah.
AEW style.
Cool.
Right.
So yeah.
We're gonna start off with the goalkeepers first because we're gonna jump right into it and we're gonna go into a lot of details anyway in regards to why we've picked up our players, what they've done in the past, the reason. So it's just basically going into a big trivial discussion about why we've picked these players in particular. So I'm going to ask you, James, for your choice of goalkeeper. Who have you got?
It's probably who you've got. There is no one else, is there? We're going to have to go with Neville Southall, the man from Llandudno. Yeah,
I got Big Nev too. I mean, the goalkeeper himself. I mean, when playing in his heyday, back in the day when he played for Everton, and especially when he played for Everton, especially when he played for Wales, he tried to put a lot of effort in, and it was just a shame that Neville Southall was always coming out short whenever they tried qualifying for Wales. But he had the most caps for Wales with 92 caps, and he was part of the squad that could have gone to the 1994 World Cup, which they lost to Romania 2-1. Who was the one who took the penalty? I completely forgot. Was it Phil Bowden, wasn't it? Is it Phil Bowden?
I forget. I'd rather forget, to be honest, but yeah. I forget. But yeah, interesting thing about that, Southall attended the funeral of John Hill, who was a supporter who was killed after being struck by a flare that was released at the end of the Romania game in the Euro 94 the World Cup 94 qualifiers. So that's the type of person we're dealing with, and that's partly the reason why I would put Big Nev into the selection. A real people's person, and he held the record for, as many people are probably aware, for top caps for Wales, 92, and that was only relatively recently surpassed by Chris Gunter in 2018. So who else would you have in goal, really?
No, there's no one else. I mean, the man he's a goal-stopping machine. He is. I know a lot of people go, well, hang on a minute. Wales lost a lot of games into Neville Southall, but you can't necessarily blame him for the way Wales have been performing, because you've had classic. I mean, in his heyday, you had such tremendous players playing alongside with Neville Southall. You had Ian Rush, obviously you had Ryan Giggs, you had all the names, all sorts of players just playing with Neville Southall, and he was captain. He became caretaker manager. He was also a coach for Wales. So I mean, the man's been there and done that. And like you say, he's
a brief stint in Rhyl in 2001. So yeah. There we are.
Yeah, he had a in the field, so madness. So we're going to go and jump to right back now, because I want to get this one out of the way. And I looked into this very carefully. I wasn't too sure which players to go for, but I went for Wrexham's own Joey Jones. The way I think about Joey Jones is I can't really say much about him because of all the other players I've looked into, Joey Jones, from what I've read, he seems to be the one that have put 110% into the games he's played for, the high level football he's played for Chelsea, Liverpool, you know, and playing for Wrexham. A lot of supporters of Wrexham could say he is one of you could call him as a Mr. Wrexham kind of person. But he wore his heart on his sleeve. He always gave 110%. And he was just an incredible player, a solid player at best as well when playing for Wales. So that's my right back.
Okay, well, my formation today is probably going to be a narrow sort of central pairing, 4 in midfield and then 3 up top. We're going all guns blazing, you know. I want to make up for missing out. I want to make up for missing out on 94, 2004, and all the other close shaves. So I'm going for gold. I mean, the last 2 in my defence are probably obvious. So I'll go with the least obvious, especially for more modern football supporters. So I'll go with Alf Sherman, man from Abrahamon. He had, we got a low battery there. He had 41 caps between 1946 and 1956. He had a combined 559 appearances for Cardiff and Newport. He was known as the king of the slide tacklers, and the legendary winger Sir Stanley Matthews, he described him, and this is no easy feat, as the most difficult opponent he'd ever faced. And he famously captained Wales to a win over England in 1955. And here's a little tidbit for you, Rhys. He also managed Barry Town between 1961 and 53.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, player manager, I heard. He was a player manager.
Yeah, at the tail end of his career. So that's my sort of a wild card. I mean, if we were talking 30, 40 years ago, then, you know, that might be a bit more obvious choice. But yeah, the ex coal miner.
I've got, you know what? I've got Alf Sherwood on the left back. So I've got Joey Jones. So I'll say this now. So I have Alf Sherwood as a left back and Joey Jones on the right, and just 2 solid players, and, you know, king of the slide tackles, and just the hardcore defenders who will stop anything in their path. And this is one of the defender. I think it's a very underrated decision, because this centre back here, he is Mr. Cardiff City, and the statue is outside of the Cardiff City Stadium, proud to be there, depicted, and it's none other than Mr. Fred Keno. Now, a lot of people will be very, I wouldn't say bewildered, just a bit, that's a bit of an unusual choice. But the reason why I picked him is because during my research, I've been I was writing up a Fred Keno play for university, which I'm still in the process of still doing now. But when I looked into his career with Cardiff City, and especially with Wales, you know, this is a man who, you know, had everything thrown in its path. And there was a lot of threats of his career being stopped at a halt, because, you know, when he was in World War I, you know, he got shot, and shrapnel affected his left knee very badly, that doctors were considering of amputating his leg, but they didn't. And he came back, but he had to play in a lot of pain. But he was, you know, the slide tackler, the stopper, you know, for his height as well. He wasn't a very tall man. He was, I think, in those days, he was 5'4", 5'5". You know, he was a very short man, but he was, you know, a gentleman, a footballer best. And when he played for Wales, he played for Wales. You know, he never let the English try and outsmart the Defence League. And he was always captain, you know, and he captained, you know, Cardiff City to win their first and only, and hopefully not to be the only time to win the FA Cup, you know, but we still talk about it to this day. And he's always been described as a leader, not for a leader in Cardiff City Football Club, but for Wales as well. And he was always there just to say, you know what, we're going to do it, and I'm going to take charge. And at the same time, I'll give you a little trivia fact here about Fred Keno. During his playtime career, he did a tackle. I don't know if it's on Billy Jennings, and I know Billy Jennings was another Welsh international, but it was a Bolton legend. It was. He did a nasty tackle on this particular player, and ever since then, England have just hated Fred Keno ever since. I don't know what the player is. I'm a bit, you know, I should smack myself on the wrist there, because, you know, I should know this. But yeah, I'm picking centre back. One of the centre backs is Fred Keno.
Okay. The other centre back that's in here, you're probably going to have. So I'm going to go with someone who you probably may not see as a centre back, but he was equally as adept up front as he was centre back, and that's John Charles from Swansea. 38, and I've got to make room up top for the boys I'm going to name later. So we're putting John Charles at centre back, and he did a hell of a job. 38 only the 38 caps for Wales, but 15 goals in them 38 caps, which is a hell of a strike rate. He's been rated by many acclaimed critic and colleague in the footballing world as the greatest all-round footballer to come out of Britain. 297 games for Leeds, 157 goals, and a good few of them were at centre-back. During the period he played from, a lot of reporters referred to Leeds United as John Charles United. And then he went on to play for Juventus, and he scored, I think it was a brilliant record, 108 goals and 155 appearances. And on the occasion of the club's centenary in 1997, they voted in the club's best foreign player. I'll have to double check on that, but I think it's 97. The club's best ever foreign player. And he did come back to play for Cardiff and Merthyr. He was, when you think of Wales, you think of the 1958 World Cup, arguably the greatest feat, or on par with the recent Euros. He was injured in a group playoff against Hungary, and he missed the Brazil quarter-final where we lost narrowly to a Pele goal. Now, I'm just putting it out there, me and controversy. Would it be a different story if we had John Charles playing?
Well, that's the same as with Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey, if he was in that game against Portugal in 2016, would Wales have reached the finals and probably taken France to the bitter end, or would have gotten Iceland? But I completely agree with you, because I think if John Charles was there in 1958 against Brazil, the game could have been absolutely different. And the thing about John Charles is, I've got him on my sheet, but I will say this when I get round to it. But I want to let people know that he was given the nickname. I can't say in Italian. It's probably El.
The Gentle Giant, wasn't it? Gentle Giant, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's the Gentle Giant. He was called the Gentle Giant because the size he was, and the thing about him was that he never ever got booked for a tackle. He was always a fair man, and he was always a gentleman of the game. And I remember there was one, I think it was Italian or Argentinian playing, a very famous one. He was a troublemaker with Juventus, and John Charles once came up to him after he'd done a nasty tackle, and he went over and smacked him full force across the face and said, "Do not ever do that again." And ever since then, this Italian or Argentinian player, because he was born in Italy, but then he played for Argentina. It was weird. Ever since then, he never done anything, mischief or anything dirty, and that was because of John Charles's leadership and his approach to football. So, but I've got in my centre back, Mr. Kevin Ratcliffe.
Yeah, that's my other one.
Yeah, I got Kevin Ratcliffe. I mean, for Everton, he made over 300 to 400 appearances, and he played for Cardiff City in the early 90s. I think it was in 1993 he helped Cardiff win the third division, or got promoted from the third division. And the quality defence that Kevin Ratcliffe offered, not just for Wales but for Everton as well, was absolutely stonking. It was unreal. The man won the European Cup Winners' Cup along with Neville Southall. He won the European Cup Winners' Cup, he won FA Cups, he won leagues, he won everything, and Southall and Ratcliffe were, and I think you can include Pat Van der Mal if you want to, but Ratcliffe and Southall were the dynamic Welsh duo of Everton and Welsh football. They were always on top of their game, they were always on fire, and they knew how to bounce off one another whenever it came to defending their goals. And that's why I put Kevin Ratcliffe there, because he would do wonders with the ball, and he'd create a lot of assists and a lot of difficulty whenever the strikers and midfielders would ever come approach Ratcliffe.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he won 59 caps in an era that was graced with, Rush, Hughes, Southall, 461 appearances for Everton. And he scored just two goals in that time. One of them was a 30-yard screamer at Anfield. So that's not a bad little record. So, I mean, the brief stint at Cardiff, I think it was 90, 92, 93. He certainly, you'd be grateful to have his experience at that point anyway. But he was captain, I think, didn't he? Yeah, they won the FA Cup in the 80s. I'm going to say 85, 84, 84.
84. But yeah, something like
that. At that side. And I did make a note that there was 3 other FA Cup finals that he was part of. And there was a UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, like you said. I'm not sure what year that was, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head. What can you say? You've got to be in there. The man from Mancot, Flintshire. That's Kevin Radcliffe.
Yeah. It's a lot of defenders. A lot of quality Welsh players come from North Wales, especially with the likes of Neville Southall, Kevin Ratcliffe. I know you got Alf Stewart, who came from Swansea area, I think he was, and then Joey Jones. He came from Wrexham, and the only it's like Fred Keano is the only one from Cardiff I've ever mentioned that's from South Wales, Cardiff area so far. But then speaking of Cardiff area, I'm going to go on to, I think, my wingers here. But my winger on the right, or he could play on the left wing as well, either way, is Mr. Hart himself, Gareth Bale, on the wing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. There's no way you cannot justify and not putting Gareth Bale in the all-time Wales 11. You just had to watch all the games he's played for Wales. It didn't matter if it was a friendly, it was the qualifiers of the World Cup or the European Championships or the Euro qualifiers or even the Nations League, whatever. Every time Wales won a game, the passion, the excitement, the energy that came from Gareth Bale. I mean, you have to look at now. It's simple. It's Wales, Golf, Madrid in that order. He will always be there for Wales. He'd always said that whenever Wales needed him, he'd be there. He told Real Madrid to piss off. He's told all the fans to piss off. Every time he's been talked down to about Wales, he's like, no, that's my country. I'm going to go play.
Yeah.
I don't care if Real Madrid tell me what to do. I'm doing better what Ryan Giggs had done. He should have. It's like, this is why the comparisons, you should never compare Gareth Bale and Ryan Giggs in terms of playing club or international level, because Gareth Bale will just top Ryan Giggs in terms of commitment.
Gareth Bale, he's got to be the best. He's got to be the best Welsh player of all time. When you look at, I mean, I don't know. You could argue Ryan Giggs because of his amount of
caliber achievements,
Premier League trophies and achievements and individual accolades. But I mean, he was in a quality team from the very genesis of his career, right until the end. Gareth Bale, you can't say the same about Gareth Bale until he came to Real Madrid, really. But I mean, personally, again, this is the beauty of our discussions. It's a matter of opinion. But I think he's got to be the best Welsh player of all time. I mean, when I was looking over the sort of stats for Gareth Bale, I'm surprised he's only got 33 goals in 83 games. The way he plays and the way we remember, his games and the games he's been involved in, you would have, in my memory, I seem to think he just scores every game, sets up everything. He's the driving force behind certainly everything we've done in the last 6 to 8 years, whatever that may be. But he's a record holder. He's won Welsh Footballer of the Year 6 times. He's scored 80 goals in 169 appearances for Los Blancos. How they can say that they don't want? How can they treat him the way they have?
Yeah, I don't understand, right? This is a player, right, that practically won them the Champions League.
Yeah.
Zidane just went. Was it Zidane or was it another manager? It was basically Real Madrid were 2-1 down, and they went, right, Gareth, just get some playing time, and he went on, scored 2 goals to bring Real Madrid back and win them the Champions Bloody League.
Mm.
And everyone's thinking, oh, he's mediocre, oh, he's nothing. We don't want him here. You've got like $100 billion. I'm not saying he's worth that much, but it's like a fortune in the palm of your hands, and you just basically gone, nah, we don't want him.
I don't understand.
It.
It's toxic. I suppose that's a discussion for another time. I don't want to get too
in depth.
Sidetracked to our what we're discussing, but yeah, it's.
I mean, that'll be a good discussion one day on the list.
Yeah, we'll have to add that to the list. But I mean, I think it was 16 years, 315 days. He was the youngest Welsh player of all time, and that was surpassed by Harry Wilson in 2012. Pardon?
I thought it was Ben Woodburn. Oh, it must have been Harry Wilson then, wasn't it?
Maybe Ben Woodburn since, but I can remember Harry Wilson surpassing that anyway. But regardless, I mean, he's won just one La Liga, which is, when you look at it, it's surprising. But then again, look who they're playing against. Atletico and Barcelona's a juggernaut, and they've been for the last 10 years. But 4 Champions Leagues, you ain't going to sniff twice at that, are you? That's ironclad reputation for you there for Gareth Bale. My other winger, who I want to bring into the discussion, you may not have him on there, is Cliff Jones from Swansea, 59 caps. Did you have him in your team?
No.
No. He played on both wings. He won multiple titles with Spurs. He played in all 5 of Wales's games at the 58 World Cup. He does remain one of the top scorers in... Your face has gone funny. If you change your camera.
I know. No, yeah, that was a problem then. I don't know what happened then. Carry on, mate.
He remains one of the top scorers in Spurs history. He scored 159 goals in 378 games. And then, his second appearance for the Welsh national side, he helped Wales beat England 2-1 at Ninian Park. That was in 1955, and he scored the winning goal. So off to a good start, obviously, on the international stage. And then a bit of trivia most people might not know is that in 1962, Juventus offered a world record deal of £125,000, mind-blowing numbers. Basically, Spurs turned them down flat. So 59 caps for the Red Dragons. And, he remains an all-time great at Spurs. You ask any Spurs fans who knows their Spurs history, and he's going to be in the conversation. So who else you got?
For my other winger, I've got Mr. Billy Meredith. Billy Meredith is, without a doubt, in football history, they said he was so ahead of his time. He retired at the age of 50. He played for Manchester City and Man United, making... Nearly. Some people said it was nearly 1,000 appearances. If you want to add in cups and preseason friendlies and everything, he made 48 caps for Wales, scored 11 goals. But this man was a machine in those days. It's just the late 1800s, early 1900s, and this is a man who was basically the Gareth Bale of his time in that era.
Yeah,
and he made 380 odd league appearances for either Man United or Man City, or if not both. He scored the amount of goals he scored, flipping heck. And the reason why I put Billy Meredith on there was because he was the guy who influenced a lot of players, including Fred Kino. And it's like Fred Kino once said that he wanted to play until the age of 50 so he can get to Billy Meredith's retirement age. And that and that speaks a lot for Billy Meredith, because for a man to retire at the age of 50 and still playing at that time high-level football for a Manchester club, it's unheard of. And, you get a lot of players. I know, you can mention Ryan Giggs, going back on Mr. Giggs again, and that's another time to talk about his playing career for Wales and that. But, he finished his career in his early 40s. But this is a man who finished when he just turned 50 and just went, I call it quits. And he said, and people said that he could have still carried on because, the fitness and the athleticism this man brought to the field was just unheard of.
Well, Meredith was in my discussion, but I think I put Cliff Jones in there just for the fact that he was, his club career was so decorated as well. But Meredith was certainly on the radar. And if I had a subs bench, which unfortunately I haven't had time to do, he would probably be on there. Just to get probably the elephant in the room out of the way for our list, I'll go on to our next one, Ryan Giggs. He's on my list anyway. Is he on your list?
He's not on my list. Whoa. He's not on my list.
And I think I know why he's not on your list. And I'm going to get the bad out of the way straight away, and then we'll go on to the many good parts. So the bad part is he didn't really care about Wales. He wasn't a country first kind of fella. He focused more on Manchester. He even played for England's schoolboys. But he's on my list because I'm basing my list off the quality of players and the accolades they've won for not only country but for club. And if I was going to put a team out, an immortal team out on the field, then Giggs has to be in there. Onto the sort of the more lighter part of Ryan Giggs. 64 caps, 12 goals. You certainly expect more from a legendary player like him. He's the current Wales manager. He's a 13-time Premier League winner, 4-time FA Cup winner, 3-time League Cup winner, 2 Champions Leagues, a Super Cup, Club World Cup. Name the cup, he's got it.
And that's what's up. And his brother's wife as well. So,
whoa. Hey, I'm not responsible for what Rhys has just said there. But what's the most impressive thing for me out of all of them accolades there is 794 games for Man United that he has started. Not that he's been a part of, that's even more. Started 794 games. So, he's got to be in that discussion, really. I'll move on to a bit of a contention point, which a lot of people it'll probably cause a bit of discussion, certainly from you, I think. There was a toss-up for my final midfielder in the list. And if I had a subs bench, this man is going to be on the subs bench, and his name's Gary Speed. Taking his place is Aaron Ramsey, and I'll tell you why. He's got 262 games for Arsenal over 11 years. I feel that he's played a higher level of football over a more consistent period to Gary Speed. He's currently at Juventus, and obviously that's his reward for everything he's done. 60 caps and 16 goals. He's youngest ever Wales captain at 20 years and 90 days. And he was named in the team of the Euro 2016 Championship. Now, just to go back to Speed, because I have a funny feeling that the former Everton man's going to be sitting deep in your midfield.
He is sitting in the centre anyway. Let's just get that out there.
I just want to say, before you get onto your bit, a 22-year career in the top flight, 677 appearances, and he was the first person to ever make 500 Premier League appearances. But again, this is the beauty of it. It's a matter of opinion, and Aaron Ramsey pips it for me. Let's hear your points.
So Gary Speed, not only because of over 500 Premier League appearances, but the commitment he has as well, the training physique and the ability to take the ball and do whatever you want with it, and it's not the accolades that makes the player, it's what he contributes onto the field. And that's why I pick Gary Speed, because when he was playing for not only Leeds United, but for Newcastle and Everton and Bolton Wanderers and even Sheffield United, the man gave not 110%, he gave 200% into what he played. He played for football, he played for the spirit of it. You know, he was Mr. Wales as well. A lot of people would probably say that. He captained mostly every single team he's played for. He's captained the team. You know, he's gone on to participated in many giant killings, especially, you know, he captained for Wales against Italy, that infamous 2-1 victory with Simon Davies and Craig Bellamy scoring the goals. He was there when Wales beat Brazil and Germany in the early 1990s when Terry Yorath was manager, you know, and Gary Speed, you know, he put Bobby Gould in his place when he was manager, because Bobby Gould was forced to put Gary Speed as captain because Gary, you know, a lot of people say that he's not an aggressive person. You know, he's a very mild-mannered person when he was alive, but you know, when the passion came in, and he was a man who spoke up for a lot of people, like Neville Southall. He was a people's person. But when you see him on the pitch, my God, you know, you can't really argue. Well, I suppose because you've picked Aaron Ramsey over Gary Speed, but like I say, it's just a matter of opinion. But I feel like Gary Speed, in terms of playing and contribution to the game, that's who I'm going with. Maybe if, like you said, if there was a substitution bench, I would put Aaron Ramsey on the bench as well. My other choice is, and I've mentioned him already, was Terry Yorath. Terry Yorath, I seen the games he played for in the 1970s. Oh my Christ, you know, they said that if he was playing today, he would be worth a lot of money because of the strength, because of the assists he's made, because of how firm he was. But a lot of people the bad side of it is that you have to look back on Terry Yorath when he played for Wales, and it was against Yugoslavia, and it was that infamous Battle of Ninian Park day where Yugoslavia and Wales went to a 1-1 draw, but it was the fault of Rudy Glockner, the referee, who I'd say shaken or shook Wales team to the core, and it put a lot of pressure on him. And when Terry Yorath had to take a penalty and it missed and everything, that's where a lot of people say, well, that's why he's not a good player. But when all the other times he's played for Wales and at club football, absolutely phenomenal. I had to pick him anyway, and especially being a manager for Wales as well. You know, he should have been, I'll say this to this day, he should have been the next manager to have taken Wales to the World Cup. Not with, you know, Chris Coleman taking Wales to Euros or whatever. He should have been that next manager to come in and gone, right, we're going to take Wales by storm. We're going to take the World Cup. Not take the World Cup, but we're going to, you know, play the best football we can get. So that's the reason why I've picked. Yeah. Put Wales on the map, basically. So that's why I got with Terry Yorath. Just going back on Gary Speed, though. Gary Speed, I mean, it's not like a posthumously appointment or a chosen, you know, person. It's just the fact that he was, you know, with 85 caps to his name. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, is that all your midfielders?
That's all my midfielders, but I know you got another one.
Well, no, I've got. So I've had Southall, and then Ratcliffe, Sherwood, and John Charles in defence. Cliff Jones, Aaron Ramsey, Giggsy, and Bale in midfield. And then I've gone with a 3 up top. So I'll name my first player to go up top, and that's going to be who else but Ian Rush.
Ian Rush.
So you've got Rush, yeah?
Yeah, I got Rush.
That's a given. So the man from St Asaph in Denbighshire, so close to Liverpool and Merseyside and the club, he is so well thought of by. 73 caps, 28 goals. Again, a record that when I think of Ian Rush, you know, I tend to remember him scoring a lot more, as I'll tell you now with his club career. But 28 goals and 73 caps. I was a bit shocked when I look back on that. But I mean, his career, again, another thing that surprised me as well, was it spanned from 1978, his professional career, to the year 2000, the turn of the millennium. So it's almost 25 years.
He finished his career with Chester, didn't he?
What's that?
He finished his career with Chester
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. So, local to home, really. But yeah, he's scored goals and won accolades for Liverpool, Juventus, Leeds, and of course, the biggest team out of all of them, mighty Wrexham. And he scored 199 goals. I'm gutted he didn't get to 200 in 427 games for the Reds, Liverpool. He went to Juventus for a British transfer record, 3.2 million in 1986. Go on.
Do you know what is it with Juventus
and
Welsh players?
I was thinking that. Charles, Ramsey, Rush.
And Rush.
What am I missing now?
No, those are the main three. But it seems as if, I know there's a lot of clubs that sign a lot of Spanish players and Argentinian players and Portuguese and everything. I know, or Italy players, whatever, because they're Italy, obviously. But it just seems to me that you think of Juventus, they always got a bit of a. You look at those three Welsh players, and John Charles, he's still celebrated to this day as a cult hero around Juventus. Aaron Ramsey is making a name for himself in Juventus. Ian Rush had made a name for himself. I know he was only there for a season, but apparently he still made a name for himself. But it always seems to be like a pattern going on where, right, let's get a Welsh player to come in,
Yeah, no, I mean, he's when you think of Ian Rush and you think of Wales football, if you're old enough, I mean, I'm not old enough actually. I just know my sort of football history. But the older generation tend to think of the winner against Germany in the 1992 Euro qualifiers. And that was just trademark Ian Rush, really. He's got 5 First Division titles, 2 European Cups, Liverpool's top scorer on 8 separate occasions, 3 FA Cups, 5 League Cups. What else do you want me to say? I think he's a given up front in any Wales fan 11. Anything else to add on Ian Rush? Really, you can't really.
You can't really add
and Giggsy, innit?
Yeah, you gotta add. Well, nothing really. There's the cherries already on top of the cake. But the other striker I got, and we've spoken about this, is John Charles.
Yeah.
I've put John Charles up. I feel like just looking at my squad, if I had to get rid of one player, it'd be Fred Keno, but I put John Charles back. And if I had to be my second option, I put John Toshak up front with Ian Rush.
Yeah, he was a toss-up between my next pick and Toshak.
Yeah. But John Charles up front, I feel like he is the strength to Rush's speed. If Rush had needed assistance, John Charles would be the one to support him, or even vice versa, with Ian Rush supporting John Charles so that he can get the headers in. Because a lot of people say he was very cautious. Players had to be cautious around John Charles because of the size he was in crossings or free kicks and that. If he had the ball, it was going to go in the back of the net.
Just to segue back to John Charles, what an amazing achievement that is for a guy who played centre back for a good chunk of his career to never be sent off or booked. That's unheard of in today's game. I mean, and back then as well. I mean, I suppose if you're going to argue about it, but back in the 1940s, 50s, when John Charles was buttering his bread, so to say, the referees, they wouldn't book you if you give someone a right hook in them days. But it's what can you say? But it's still an amazing achievement.
Well, Charles's career spanned from the 1950s to the 60s, 70s, early 70s. And if you look on his career, it's just kind of sad in a way, because here's a man who came from Swansea. He played for Swansea Town in the working class areas, and he went off to reach for the stars in Leeds United. Then reached mega high, supernova style in Juventus. Then he came back. I think he went to Swansea, came home, but then he went back to Italy to play for Roma, and then came back to Wales, and then played for Cardiff City. Helped them in the European Cup Winners' Cup, which I feel that squad then, who had Derek Tapscott, who's a former Barry Town player, who had Derek Tapscott, Mel Charles, his brother. Some of those players back then, they should have won the European Cup Winners' Cup back then. They should have. The squad they had was unbelievable for Cardiff. Yeah. And, you got to look back, and the reason why they've had so much European success was because of the Welsh Cup. And Cardiff were the team. They were the team. If that wasn't the case, then it should have been. Because, what was it? It was because they beat Sporting Cup Portugal, and that was a bit of a problem. Because I remember speaking to Malcolm Tapscott, which is Derek Tapscott's brother, and he said there was an incident during the one game where it came in for a cross. Derek Tapscott went in for the dive and header. He collided with the Portuguese Sporting Lisbon's goalkeeper. The goalkeeper picked him up, carried him off the field, and went to kick him. And then out of nowhere, this big lad called John Charles comes in, and he just pummels the guy, throws him into the post, and said, "Don't you fucking touch my player."
Didn't get a booking, did he, Rhys?
No, he didn't, because he's called the Gentle Giant, which is still to this day. But going back on it, but that's the character John Charles was. Is that if he was your mate, you'll know he's your mate, because he will stand up for you, and he stand up for what he believed in. But that's why I think his strength and his agility, as a centre back and a centre forward, is useful for Ian Rush to come in and be supported by. So that's the reason why I picked John Charles up front. But if it wasn't John Charles, it was another John. It was John Toshak up front.
Yeah, I mean, it was a toss-up between. I got two more choices left, and they're both forwards. So the next choice is Ivor Allchurch from Swansea. It was a toss-up between him and John Toshak. Now Ivor had 68 caps, 23 goals and that 23 goals. Not the 23 goals, the 68 caps. Even though it sounds like nothing these days, that was a record for caps that stood almost 20 years back in the day. 691 senior appearances, 249 senior goals. I'm not sure if this is still the case. He's got a statue outside the Liberty Stadium. I know that for a fact. But he was Swansea's all-time leading goal scorer with 124 goals. I don't know if that's been eclipsed in the meantime in recent history, but he has played for Newcastle, Cardiff, and then a second spell with Swansea.
He won the FA Cup, didn't he?
What's that, sorry?
He won the FA Cup with Newcastle, I think, in 1955.
Did. Yeah, he did. I mean, I've got limited notes here, but in regards to Ivor Allchurch, he beat Toshak to the punch. I was thinking of Toshak because Toshak's obviously he was a class player, but Toshak's got an extensive managerial career afterwards as well. That's taken into here, there, everywhere, Timbuktu, Narnia, Real Sociedad, and everywhere.
There's a team called
Tractor.
Yeah, there's is I think one of his last managerial.
Huh? It was the last place he managed, I think, a team called Tractor.
It was called Tractor. Okay. Yeah. All right, John.
So yeah, that's him ploughing his trade, no pun intended. Yeah. So yeah, and then my final choice in my lineup is a man from Wrexham. Any guesses? He's got 72 caps. He's got 16 goals. Again, in 72 caps, I'm surprised he only scored 16 goals. He had a 22-year career, 606 appearances and 164 goals. And he did forge he's still forging a lengthy managerial career. And his name is Mark Hughes. So
I can't fault you there. Well, his lengthy career, he hasn't got a club yet to manage, but
I mean, he's recently been in and out of jobs, hasn't he? But I mean, the reason I've picked him is obviously over the 22 years, Manchester United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea, just to roll off the tip of the tongue. 2 Premier Leagues, 4 FA Cups, 2 Cup Winners' Cups. He's got to go in for me.
And again, how the likes of Ian Rush, Mark Hughes, Gary Speed, Neville Southall, Kevin Ratcliffe, how are these players, when they're playing for Wales, never reached the group stages or the knockout stages of the World Cup? It just baffles me. It honestly baffles me to this day. I mean, the 1993, the squad back in the early 1990s, that should have been the team to go far in the World Cup. And it was just what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean, we were a penalty away, weren't we? Really.
And do you know the one thing about that game was the same day, the same night of that game. I don't know what television. It may have been the BBC or maybe Sky Sports. I don't know which one it was. Or it couldn't have been Sky Sports, but one of the TV coverages were covering England versus San Marino. Now, when San Marino scored that goal, which cost England the chance to qualify for the World Cup, right? All the television coverages, all the stations just went, Wales could be doing it. Oh, we got to change. And they all just went, and they just changed the channel to Wales. And they all just covered Wales. And millions of people were watching Wales versus Romania, having a glimpse to see if Wales can get to the World Cup. It was mind-boggling.
But since then, I mean, my final pick, Mark Hughes, he also came close. Euro 2004. Again, probably a bit too controversial to talk about, but Russia had a helping hand through avenues which, well, you know what I mean? Yeah, they were on the old juice. And yeah, I mean, during Mark Hughes' Wales managerial career, he beat Germany, he beat Italy, he drew with Argentina, he drew with the Czech Republic. But I mean, that's just the side note of his accomplished playing career. So what I'll do now there, Rhys, is I'll just recap my 11. Have you got anyone else? Have we missed anyone for you?
No, I've kept it a simple 4-4-2 with Neville Southall in goals, and I'll recap on mine very quickly, and then I'll do yours. So I got in goals Neville Southall, on the right back Joey Jones, 2 centre backs I got Fred Keano and Kevin Ratcliffe, left back I got Al Sherwood, on the wing I've got Gareth Bale on the right, Billy Meredith on the left, Terry Orth and Gary Speed in the centre, and then up front John Charles and Ian Rush.
Sweet. So I've got Neville Southall in goals. I've got a narrow, not a narrow, but a back three of Ratcliffe, Alf Sherwood, and John Charles. We're looking at, there's three wingers in my 4 midfielders, so I don't know how I would look at playing them. Maybe I'd play Cliff Jones on the right, Ryan Giggs on the left. I'd play Aaron Ramsey in a central role, and then maybe Gareth Bale a bit more advanced. And then I would basically play a wide three with Allchurch on the left, Mark Hughes on the right, and then Ian Rush spearheading the line. So that's my 11. Bit of a difference. There's more difference than I thought there was going to be in our in our 11s, and it's been an interesting insight into how you view Wales, and maybe if our viewers care to give us a little comment, and maybe when we do another podcast we can read out the their 11s, and we can discuss them together and have a bit of further discussion.
Well, that's fair enough. And you know what? So, guys, if you're watching this, leave a comment below to share your thoughts and opinions on ours, and then hopefully and see which ones have you got in your comments. Which players would you want to see in the Wales all-time 11? And you know what? I'm proud of our squad. They would do wonders, both of them anyway. But but like I said about the John Charles one, is I know I keep going back to John Charles, but if I didn't pick Fred Keno, it would have been John Charles in the centre back, and then probably John Toshak in a front. And I know at the substitution bench, I've had Craig Bellamy on one, Aaron Ramsey, Mark Hughes, I got a few of them in line, but that is actually wonderful.
Not Ched Evans.
Oh, you said that, not me. Now, do you know what? In all fairness, if that incident, I'll call it an incident. If that incident didn't happen, Ched Evans would have gone further with Wales.
I think he would have been. I think he would have accomplished much more than he did. It's just a shame that things had to pan out the way they did for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's.
It is what it is.
It's a touchy subject, isn't it? But footballing wise, if I'm keeping it on the field, I think Ched Edwards is probably the least realised. Him and Darcy Blake are the least realised potential in the last 10, 15 years for Welsh football, I think.
I mean, if we're looking back on Darcy Blake as well, and I'd love to have Darcy Blake on the show, and I'm actually on the hunt for him now, if I may say so, to see where he is. I know.
No one can get him. No one can get him anywhere. He's elusive, mate. Yeah, he doesn't have any sort of social media apparently. But
no, he has no social media. But I've heard one or two people said he's playing in the Merthyr district leagues. So because that's where he's based. I know he's based in around New Tredegar area. But for Darcy Blake was one of those players where he was reliable, but at the same time, he wasn't going to outshine the other defenders like Ashley Williams or James Collins and all them lot. But whenever he put his mind to it, I mean, Darcy Blake is forever going to be remembered as that Welsh defender who tackled Wayne Rooney, just cleaned him out of. He just pulled the rug out of the carpet, basically.
Pulled
the rug off his feet.
I mean, he's got his own personal preferences and issues, but I can't grasp how he went from having Wayne Rooney in his back pocket to playing for like Aberbargoed rugby team. Well,
he was playing. I remember. I don't want to because I actually feel bad for. I was surprised that Darcy Blake disappeared from the face of the.
I respect that, but it's it's what a change. Like, you know what I mean? Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, it went from Premier League with Crystal Palace to Welsh League Division 2 or 3 with Aberbargoed Buds FC. And I remember when Barry played against Aberbargoed, because they had to move ground because of regulations or something like that. And we travelled to Ystrad Mynach. And when we got into the ground and we sat there was me, Nicholas Hewitt, Ryan Cox, and there was a few other people. And as the players came out, there was a familiar face coming out in an Aberbargoed Bud shirt, and it was Darcy Blake. And we were just sat there all looking at each other thinking, there he is, we found him, but what is he doing here?
Yeah.
And he was in his late 20s, so it's not as if his football career was over.
No, it should be in his prime. But
yeah, so it's just. But then again, we could talk about David Cottrell on that matter. But it's like I've spoken to him on the podcast, and he's happy with Barry, and he hopes to continue playing for the team part-time wise. And so it depends on one's decision,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, can't say much really. But I mean, with David, he's the other side of 30 now. That no disrespect to him, but he has had a what I would call a good career. He hasn't sort of. I'm trying to stay respectful to Darcy Blake here, but he hasn't fallen off so dramatically that Darcy did. I love Darcy to bits, but David has had his sort of moment in the sunshine, and I think playing for Barry, even at what is he, like 30, 32, something like that.
30 years old. Bang on 32.
Yeah, at 32 years of age, he's still got a lot of legs in him, especially for the Welsh Premier League. And again, that's probably something for another discussion. But I think what a coup for Barry. Yeah, class. So AOB, as they say, Rhys. Any other business?
And well, yeah, and that's it for now, because I think the next time we'll have a brief chat about it probably sometime this week or whatever, just to talk about whatever discussions we could talk about, any specific topics, because actually we talked about one or two things that we could talk about. You know, we could talk about the Bobby Gould era, we could talk about John Toshak's era, or we could talk about, you know, Welsh players falling from grace. There's loads to talk about, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you. But in the meantime, this is our Wales 11. I've enjoyed doing this with you, James.
All the best.
All the best. So take care. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Dragon's Voice podcast. I've been your host, Rhys, and so as James Clemens, he is the new co-host of Dragon's Voice podcast, and we'll see you all very soon. Take care, guys. Stay safe.